Hi friends, welcome to the Gospel Nomad Girl channel where I talk about life, love, and living by faith. Today I want to give you an update on what I was doing all last week. I was in Oklahoma with a faith-based volunteer search and rescue team called Gideon Rescue Company. And we were doing wilderness search and rescue and some swiftwater training. It was fantastic. So I had this on my, iScope, I guess, for a couple weeks since I got the notification about it. And I was just like, okay, I don't know if my schedule is going to allow for it. I don't know if my budget's going to allow for it with this short notice. But I was just praying. I'm like, well, God, you got to supply the resources if you want me to go on this thing. So those resources came in like a day and a half before this trip. I called on a Sunday morning and I was like, hey, is there still space for me to come down? And if so, what do I need a budget for the Airbnb, for meals? I already saw, the fee for the book and for the testing that we would have to do. And then it looks like there's a supply list that I haven't received, so I wasn't planning on that in my budget. Let me know what that's about. Anyways, they were just like, yeah, Dana, come on down. If you feel like God's leading you, we'd love to have you. So I was like, all right, well, I feel like I'm supposed to go. And so I went, and the leadership had been like, don't worry, we'll provide you with a backpack with supplies in it so that you can be outfitted, because we were supposed to have a 24-hour pack on us for emergency and some medical stuff and food and all that you would need if you're doing a search and rescue and you have to survive for 24 hours, or you find the lost person or the victim and you have to do basic care to help them also until more help comes. So that's what that pack is for. I have zero background in search and rescue. I'm a blank slate. I have zero supplies right now for outdoors stuff in my life. And so I was like, okay, well, you're gonna supply that. And then one of the leaders like, hey, I think I have a book, I'll let you use the book. So I'm like, great, okay, God, you got me covered. So I pack up and drive down, get there like 11:30 at night, and have to set up my little classroom so I could teach English first thing in the morning. So I'm like operating on about 3 hours of sleep, 3.5 hours of sleep that first night. And meeting the team, there were 6 people total that there were slots for. So where this training was outside of Oklahoma City was a place that is a training center for canines for search and rescue. And it is not a small deal. Like, it is phenomenal, the work that they do there, training dogs. It's a not-for-profit organization. I'm wearing their hat, Ground Zero, canine training for emergency rescue. Phenomenal nonprofit organization. Like, from what I understand, a lot of places that train dogs for search and rescue, for guard dogs, or for looking for victims like cadavers and drugs and bombs, like whatever, missing persons, like put out about 8 dogs per year. This place puts out about 31 on average. And again, these dogs are donated to persons, and so this is like a $50,000 investment, and this is a not-for-profit that just as they see the greater need for disasters, and when things happen and you don't have infrastructure, the help is not there, you don't have enough dogs on site in these big disasters to search for people immediately in those critical hours. Lives are hanging in the balance because we are unprepared, and so this is their heart to prepare dogs, prepare people to help in local situations and on bigger situations when there's more disasters. So fascinating story, and the people that run it are amazing also. It's like this is going to show my sports ignorance, but the coach and his wife from the last Dallas Cowboys Super Bowl, in the 90s, I think that was. I don't know, whenever Dallas Cowboys went. But this is their organization that they're over, and this is really dear to their heart. So so they're the people that run it, and so they were paying for a training for their employees to go through search and rescue, not just the dog handler training that they do, but also search and rescue certifications. And the Gideon Rescue Company was invited to participate in that and got connected with them. So that's why 6 of us were able to participate in this training also. And so it was fantastic, is all I can say. The people were great. I love it when people are volunteers and they do this and spend their time, their energy, just a heart of giving for their love of humanity and for the love of just seeing people trained and empowered to help in critical situations, whether it is a missing person or it is a disaster on land or on water, that people will be prepared. Because, you know, when an event happens, as humans, we tend to, be like, oh my goodness, this happened, and then we respond, but then training will kick in, and you're mentally prepared. You've been through these practices before. You understand how operations are, so you can operate out of wisdom and preparedness rather than fear and chaos. So I was just really, again, just blown away by this. So the class that we were taking, it's called SAR Tech 2. Search and Rescue Tech 2, and this is basically going over the hierarchical processes and assembling of leadership and volunteers to have a common terminology, a common understanding of leadership and how you define leadership when you have multiple leaders coming together, like to help out, or whether it's just one person. So whether that's the sheriff, like showing up for an accident, you know, what are the different positions that he's holding? Well, at that moment, he is like 5 positions. He is the incident commander. He is the planning chief. He is the logistics chief. He is the admin and finance person. He is the operation. So like how that fits all in a small thing versus a large scale, also just all the processes you have to run through, or thought processes, in order to do that. And so that was fascinating for me, because you can see how large scale that gets, whether that's because it's the Air Force who is in charge of land searches overall, and the Coast Guard that does a water or maritime searches. And so everything that falls under that, whether on a state level or local city level, understanding the way the leaderships work out for that. Yeah, because you could have, you know, when what happens when you have a missing person, you know, you need to call 911 and report a missing person, and well, who can show up for that scene with 911? Well, or whatever the what is the word? The devastation is that's going on. You're going to have your firemen that are going to show up. You're going to have your local police enforcement. You're going to have your medical, your ambulance. You're going to have people that are trained leaders, but how do you determine who is the commander over this at that moment? And so understanding how to assemble, how to determine incident commander versus unified command, and knowing, because the SAR training, the SAR certification then lets people know immediately what your certification level is as a volunteer. So this particular certification would allow us to help out with search and rescue in wilderness or non-wilderness areas. And in order to do that, we need to have our 24-hour pack for non-wilderness, 24-hour pack for wilderness areas, and be able to track footprints. We need to be able to use a compass and be able to find ourselves on a map, or and be able to know our distances if we have nothing to measure except our footsteps and our pacing. So those were all very fascinating for me in this training, and I just found it so valuable, as well as the the dog training, like that just blew my mind. How you could, not only are there all these beautiful dogs, and I just love dogs, but like these are machines, like these are trained to be machines, and from puppy age, and you know, to search, to you know, search for bodies, to search for drugs, to search for bombs, to guard. And so just seeing how they do that and talking with the trainer, because you'll see in the pictures, I'm going to talk right now and then show some of the pictures in the video from this past week so you can see it since you weren't there to experience it. I just want you to know how amazing it was. Because even in the training, for seeing how they train the dogs, and you know, the training takes about a year, I think, or a year and a half for these dogs to go through. And like the trainer was showing us one day and demonstrating on us as humans, being like, this is what the dogs go through. Like we don't have to use words. We work on a reward system. Like the dogs understand this as a game. They find something, they get a reward. And so we make this, that's fun for them. So their focus is, what do I have to do in order to get a reward? And you have to find out what reward works for the dog. But when the dog comes in, the trainer has a clicker, and he will click based on, you know, if the dog is doing a correct behavior. Is it moving to the direction it wants it to move? Is it not? Is it, so all these different things. So they were giving us that opportunity to try that as humans. And so Josiah and Faith, two of our team members, you'll see them in the pictures. Faith is holding a broom because her assignment was she needed to pick up a broom and give it to Meredith, another team member. Again, she's just walking into a room, has no clue what she's supposed to be doing, but by clicks and figuring out rewarding for being clicked, and she's not getting clicks if she's further away from what she should be doing. So it's all just like, where are these clicks leading? Like, what do I need to, just, again, it just blows my mind. And same with Josiah. Josiah's task that he didn't know was to find that wooden, that piece of wood, that wood setup, and to sit on it. So how do you tell somebody without using words and you're just using a clicker? Well, you reward them when they move in a right direction, when they pick it up, or when they get closer to an object. And so talking about how you're training dogs and just adding a few words here and there was just interesting to watch. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting for, you know, how even we train each other and how to treat ourselves based on our communication, based on whether we respond quickly or not quickly, like what are the messages being sent to each other. So I like to see the transferableness to the human side of it, not just the dogs. But anyway, so it was just fascinating and I loved it. And the thing with this trip, again, like I came in there blank slate, not knowing any knowledge, not having anything of my own, and it was really neat just to see how God provided, because again, this was a last minute thing for me, and I didn't have any of the stuff I needed to have for the class, and just how God provided. So I just want to give some shout outs to some of my teammates. You don't know them at all, but it was just a fun team, you know, to spend 6 days of intensive learning, because again, this was supposed to be an 8-day course. We get there, we find out not only is it just 4 days, but it's an expedited course, and so we have, like, you know, a book, and we have knowledge we're supposed to be learning. So it's 2 days in the classroom, 2 days in the field, and testing done. Lots to learn. And our leader for Gideon Rescue Company that was there, Corey, he did a phenomenal job. Like, Corey is calm but detailed, and he knows his information. He knows his rescue stuff. He's a first responder, works with EMT, as well as has his degree in international relief and rescue. And so it was so neat, because I hadn't hung out with Corey or seen him or talked to him for like over 12 years back from undergrad. And so it was just neat to see how he operates as a man of faith, and his joy just to just to follow the Lord's strategies and know that the Lord's going to bring us out on top. And he would do worships. All week we spent worship on 1 Samuel chapter 17 on David and Goliath. And each night Corey would bring out a different point and talk about it in depth. And it was so good. So Corey, like, praise God for you. You did an awesome job, as well as thank you for giving me a backpack to borrow with supplies and making sure that I was set up in that way. Also, another team member that we had was Meredith. Originally, when I got this message of, it was saying, okay, well, we're gonna have cereal for breakfast and we'll have sandwiches for lunch and spaghetti for dinner. I was like, oh, all right, well, I'm gluten sensitive anyways, and so I'm like, I need a lot of fresh things in my diet. I was like, I'll have to go shopping when I get there. I get there. Meredith, she's like a mom to the team because she has her own kids in her 20s, but she was like stocked. The kitchen was stocked full of fresh, vegan, lots of fruit, lots of veggies, stuff for gluten sensitive. She just has such a passionate faith and just wants to help and loves the search and rescue. And also just thanks so much, Meredith, for letting me borrow your book and read through your book also during class. So again, just how everybody came together and was sharing was a beautiful thing. I want to give a shout out to my other teammates whilst I'm here, just Josiah and Faith. It was so lovely to meet you. I think that they were about 19 years old, so they were the youngest team members there, but just such a joy to have and just to see their enthusiasm for all the learning and just being able to be in an environment of faith where you have men of faith that it's their delight just to run with the Lord and be available for the Lord and just be like, we don't have a clue how the Lord is going to work this out, but he's sending us and he's going to keep working it out for us. So for them to be around, for you, Josiah and Faith, just to be around guys that operate in faith and you get to experience and see the Lord just work things out. And I was just so happy for your guys' response, because Faith was just like, this was amazing. Like, I had an amazing time, and I've grown. And I was like, yes, this is an incredible environment. And then I just want to give a shout out also lastly to Chris. Chris, I just want to thank you so much for our conversations that we could have while on driving on the way to our class, on the way there and back, and just for the laughter and the banter. I appreciate your extreme extroversion and no fear. You're just quick-witted and to banter and just the intellectual side that you have, and again, just you're running with God in faith and free-spirited, be like, okay, well, we're gonna go do this, all right, God, and your ability to hear the voice of the Lord and just be like, it's the Lord, and run with it and be at peace with that and not really second guess it. And also, Chris, thank you for teaching me how to use my compass on the map and whatever that other flat thing was. Was that a protracted compass? I don't know. A different compass? I don't have a clue what this is called. And for letting me use that during the test also. So Chris hooked me up that way, and so this was the teamwork, and it was fantastic going in. And another thing that just happened, because again, we're faith-based, and there's Christians, there's not Christians there, and one of the things that people automatically notice is that we eat a plant-based diet. So when other people are like, oh, well, we're having lunch, you can eat with us, but we don't eat meat products. And so just the questions that come up automatically because of that, and just opportunities to share faith that arise, and it was so interesting for me because one of the classmates that was there, one of the trainers, one of the first days when we were having to figure out our pacing. So what that means is that we were given 100 meters cone to cone, and we had to walk it multiple times and figure out how many paces. So a pace is going to be 2 foot sprints or whatever, foot movements. That's one pace, and we had to figure out an average based off of multiple times walking this 100 meters, what our average pace is for 100 meters. Mine turned out to be 55, and so I can know by that wherever I'm walking in a wilderness setting, I can count my my pace and know and transfer that into meters, to help give location and to help me track where I'm at, without having any other understanding or tool for distance on me. And so I was, the first day when we were practicing that, I was really focused, and I think we had our packs on, so maybe it was the second day, and there was a group of students lined up at the cone, and and I started walking, and I was just like, okay, let me focus, because the first step we don't count, and then you start counting, and I was just like, okay, I think I have this. But one of the girls just called out to me. She's like, Dana, you look like a Tyrannosaurus the way you're walking. It just made me laugh, because I probably did. And so I had to start over. So I started over, and then one of the, then I got started again and walked a few paces, and I was like, no, I think I started my count wrong. Let me start again. So one of my classmates was just like, are you planning on like training the dogs and being a dog handler? And I was like, well, I don't think so. I don't really feel like it's my season in life to own a dog or to have that, but I'd really like to see the process and see how people are trained. I'd like to participate, even if I'm not going to be operating with that, on that level. And he was just like, well, I hope not, if you can't even keep track of your counting and your steps. So again, there's the jovialness, but there was like a seriousness to that. And I was like, oh, again, people have no clue who we are. We don't like who I am, and I look like half my age, but I'm not. So I'm pretty educated. And so to sit here and have like my brain and my capabilities like mocked, I was just like, all right. So anyways, all that to say, like, there were many times our team was just praying, like, God, we have a bunch of Goliaths in this, not only with this training that is like crunched and compacted, and we have so much to learn, and but also I was just praying for favor, for grace and favor in the eyes of the trainers and the professor, and just the people there. Because again, I'm a blank slate coming into this stuff, and unprepared, borrowed stuff. Thank the Lord. That's how we work, you know, as teams, each contributing how you can. And so it was funny, like the next day when we were doing one of our trainings out in the field, we had, I can't remember what it's called, a land something, but we're given a paper with 6 different points on it, and what that looked like for us is that there were stakes in the ground with letters of the alphabet on. So we were starting at a certain letter. I was starting at letter C, and I was given an instruction like, go, like, set your compass at 255 degrees, and then you have to see where that gets you and mark the next letter that's taking you to, and how many meters you walked. So you're having to convert your pacing into meters, and you have a timed amount that you can do this, and also within a certain amount of meters that you have to get within the correct certain amount of meters. Anyways, so when we first did this exercise, again, I was using a borrowed compass, and it wasn't this specific one that was required for the class, which is a glass. It has a glass on it. So this was just a simple plastic one with a base. And when I turned in my sheet, like, I did great. And the instructor of the course was just like announcing to the whole like class that I had come within 3 meters of the actual meterage for the route that I was on, which was the closest anybody had gotten. And then this other person who was a trainer there, he was just like, that girl has a brain. And I was just like, oh, praise the Lord, he doesn't think I'm a complete idiot. And there was another time this trainer, you know, when we were doing the dogs and doing the clicking on each other, so that us as humans could figure out how the dogs feel and how to go about, you know, finding what we're being told we have to find. This trainer had told me, he was just like, you know what, you are the least likely to succeed. You are the least person that I would think would be able to do this, but you, like, you handled this just as I did. Like, you are quick. He's like, you got eagle's eyes. And so I could just see, like, he had a respect for me, and I was like, oh, good. And I didn't really think that I was doing amazing at it, but he was like, no, you were on point. Like, you did it exactly how I would do it. Like, you have eagle's eyes. You notice things. And so again, I was just like, thank you, God, because I'm just praying, you know, grace and favor, Lord, grace and favor on this trip. So those were just some of the beautiful things. And again, Corey, I have a black ant biting my foot. I'm outside. On Wednesday night, it was late because, you know, we'd get back from class closer to like 7:30, 8. Need to eat still and shower and have worship, and worship would be like an hour and a half, and it was so good, but it's late. And so I was averaging about 4 hours a night because I had to get up early and teach in the mornings, and so before my classes that I was taking, and so like our last night of the class, Wednesday night, we'd stayed longer till like 8 something, I think, or maybe it wasn't that late, 7 something, I don't know. But by the time we were free to study for the night, I think it was like 11 o'clock p.m. And Corey was just like, you know, I really just want to challenge you guys. God wants to give us rest. We are here. Just have faith. Like, don't even study tonight. You can study in the morning. I wouldn't have had time to study in the morning because I had to teach classes. And he's like, but just go in faith. And so I just took that, because usually even for my tests, when I'm studying for anything, I'm like, well, God, you know exactly what's on that test, so you can help me focus on areas that I need to study if I am not spending enough time on a certain area, because you promised that if I lack wisdom, you'll give it to me. So that's what we did, and it was just blew my mind, like how we took 4 tests or 5 tests that next day. We did an area search where we had people in a line. So like every 15 meters, you'd have another person, like a lane. So if you imagine like lanes going down a field, and we had to stay within our lane and go 100 meters searching this field with tall grasses for clues for whatever we're looking for, and we had to get a certain amount. And then we had another one where there was curves in the region, and so again, having to realign our team again and again, just to make sure that we're not missing any of that ground as we're looking for clues for that. So we had an area search, a route search. We had our written tests first thing in the morning. That was multiple hours. And then our last one was out in a field again, a big field, trees, water, hills, doing our 6-point compass test. And it was so neat because as we were walking down, some of us in my team, we were walking down as others had finished it and walking back up, and one of the trainers was like, hey Dana, here, use my compass. So it was one with the glass plate thing, and then also his walking stick, which also had tape already all around it, because we would need that for tracking footprints and measuring footprints and strides and that sort of thing, marking those things. And I was just blown again, just like, you know, somebody who had made fun of me at the beginning now like respects me and is like, here, use my stuff. Like, so he just outfitted me to succeed even more for this final test. And it was so good out there in the field just doing that, and it worked out perfect. And I did well and I passed. And so in all of that, we didn't know, and you'll hear in my videos throughout it, at the end of that course, I'm like waiting to hear how I did on my written test, because I'd passed the other ones and done well. Because this course was so expedited that literally we had, on some of these field things that we were doing, we hadn't even gotten to them. So we were having to practice at the same time, like do our test as our practice, and run. So they were very gracious, but also we still had to pass. And so, but just to see how I did well, like I did well on my searches, and I passed. And then I passed the written one, and a number of our team members got the highest scores in this class, which I wasn't expecting. I was like, geez, I just need to pass at 80%. Like, can you just help me pass? I'm not even sure how I did on this like map thing. but I passed. And so again, just the amazingness of God in all of that. And I'm gonna end this now and for the search and rescue part, and then I'll pick up at the end of the video on the swift water time. I am out in Oklahoma doing a search and rescue course. We're on day 3. Today we get to practice doing a 6-point course using our compass to find different headings. And we have to do it within a certain amount of paces. This is what our terrain looks like so far. So this should be fun. So it is almost the end of day 4 of training for search and rescue. It's called SAR, S-A-R, certification. And we had 4 or 5 tests today. We had the written one first thing, then we had an area search and a route search, and then a land search. I mean, maybe I'm calling it wrong, but the last one we had to do with a compass and find 6 different points and count our pacing and convert that to meters, and we had to do it within a certain amount of time. So I'm happy, like, praise the Lord, this has been a pass. I'm still waiting to hear about the written test. So there's margin for that. We have to get 80%, but we'll see how that went with not as much study time. These have been long days, yo. I think I've been going to bed around midnight, and then with teaching in the morning, I'm up about 4:30. So I've been averaging about 4.5 hours of sleep the last couple nights, and there's a lot of pretty wildflowers in the field here. Look at beautiful. Such a sunny day. We're just finishing off my teammates at one of the final points that they have. So we are done. So it is day 5 of training, and I am at the OKC River Park right now. We're going to do some swift water training with the rescue boat that Gideon Rescue Company has. So this is where we're at. It's kind of calm right here. This is Gideon Rescue right here. But some people are taking out those rafts. But that's what we're about to be up to. Fun times. So we're going to be going up that conveyor belt to the right. You can see it, and then it's going to pull us around and drop us off the other side of these trees. There's a channel for the rescue boat to go through. And there's a bunch of people here right now getting ready to ride these rafts and go down also, but the water's pretty calm, but we'll be going up into the Swiftwater. So it looks like this is going to fit on the conveyor belt, and we ran into somebody who wants us to video it. So he's got a video to attach to the helmet of one of our teammates and got some footage of us going down the rapids. Sounds awesome.
Came through, now we're in the calm section area.
I understand you were trying to figure out the parking garage design.
Let's get some speed. Hey! Perfect. Oh yeah! Money!
All right, so you saw the videos and the photos from the Swiftwater Training Center. So that is one of 3 Olympic-sized training centers for Swiftwater there. I don't remember if it's rafting or kayaking or what all people doing it with this Olympic, sizeness, but it was so awesome. Like when we went, because the leaders of Gideon Rescue had been trying to contact them about coming and using their boat, the Creature Craft, and this is a real stable boat invention out of Colorado. I don't remember the name of the guy, but for Creature Craft, it can go up to class 6 rapids, and it's pretty stable. It takes a lot to make it unstable, and so if you're finding victims, they can be in the center of this craft and be stable. You don't have to worry about it tipping too much. I mean, it all depends on how serious those rapids get. But for class 2 and 3 and 4, you're gonna be fine. Smooth sailing, Cadillac, you're gonna be great. But they'd been trying to contact them about using their facility for this, for training, and we weren't sure what the cost would be. We were thinking, okay, $25, $50 per team member to show up and be able to train. And when we got there, it was free because we're first responders. And so I was like, what a gift. And also, when we were bringing in the Creature Craft on wheels, and you'll have already seen this in the video, but one of the manager people there was like, what are you guys doing? And so he wanted us to take his GoPro and put it on our helmets, or one of the guys' helmets, and just take pictures and take video footage of it. And so that was super awesome. And then again, he talked to us afterwards about what we're doing, about the Gideon Rescue Company and how they operate. And again, the door was just open for this to expand, and like, oh, well, are we able to train other people or other teams? Like, what is our availability for this? And before, 2 years ago, Brock, one of the other leaders, he was just like, this wasn't even an option. I can't remember the university there in not Kansas City, but Oklahoma City, but just that they had a monopoly on this. And so other people couldn't even come in and train unless they went through the university. That's my understanding of what I understood by what was communicated. And now that's not the case anymore. They don't have that monopoly on that right now. And so it opens the doors for other people like Gideon Rescue Company to come in and do trainings there for Swiftwater and train more people in Swiftwater rescue, and to use the creature craft and to be available for other people that may want training in that also. So what a blessing again. And it was so neat because Brock was, when we're he's just, they're such people of faith, and it just makes my heart beam in general. And he was just like, Dana, just remember, like God says, like wherever, just like Joshua or wherever, it's just like wherever you set your foot, like I will give it to you. And to see just how it was free for us as first responders, and just the open door to partner to be trainers, as well as have great footage that the OKC River Sport was going to put up on their website, on their Instagram page. And so that's free advertisement also, all because we're just like praying for God to use us to be a blessing, God to open up doors, for God this is God's ministry. And so we're just always excited to see how he just expands the opportunities for training and for the gospel. So anyways, again, phenomenal trip, phenomenal time, phenomenal people. It was a real blessing, and that's what I've been up to for the last week. So I hope that was a blessing to listen to. Again, this has been the Gospel Nomad Girl, talking about life, love, and living by faith.